The crowd outside the palace stood in silence, phones raised, eyes fixed on the world-famous royal guards, stoic, still, and unshakable. They were known for their discipline, their posture, and their unbreakable commitment to never reacting. But everything changed the moment a small boy stepped forward, holding something in his trembling hands. No one expected what would come next, and no one, not even the guards, expected a moment so warm it would stay with them forever. It started with a soft gasp from the crowd. The little boy, no more than 7, shuffled toward the guard on duty. His shoes were worn, his jacket a little too big, and his eyes filled with the kind of innocent determination only children have. The guard stood firm, unmoving, just as he was trained. But the boy didn't stop. He walked right up to him, gently lifted a small paper note, and whispered, "This is for your mom." People turned to each other, confused. Why would a child say that? Why would he hand a note to a guard who wasn't allowed to react? The hush in the air grew deeper. And then the impossible happened. The guard blinked, shifted slightly, and slowly lowered his gaze. The silence around the palace turned electric. A royal guard had broken character. Before we continue, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to StorySphere for more inspiring stories. Your support helps us bring you real, heartwarming moments from around the world. The story behind that moment began long before the boy ever approached the palace. His mother had been a soldier, brave, dedicated, and full of kindness. She used to tell him stories of guards who stood outside royal grounds, watching over people they didn't even know. She told him that honor wasn't just about duty, it was about compassion. After she passed away the year before, the boy held on to those stories as a piece of her memory. And on that chilly afternoon, he decided he wanted to give something back to the people who reminded him of her. He drew a small picture at home, a soldier in uniform surrounded by warm rays of light, and he wrote, in a child's handwriting, "Thank you for protecting people like my mom did." It was simple, it was honest, and for him, it meant everything. As the guard looked down at the boy, a wave of emotion washed over the crowd. The guard's face remained disciplined, but his eyes softened just enough for the people closest to him to notice. Slowly, carefully, still maintaining his posture, he bent just slightly, enough to accept the note without breaking his formal stance. It was a tiny gesture, barely noticeable, but it felt monumental. The crowd exhaled all at once, as though witnessing a miracle. One woman near the front wiped her tears, whispering, "He wasn't supposed to do that." Someone else whispered back, "But he did. And thank God he did." Moments later, another guard, positioned a few feet away, subtly shifted his stance too, a silent sign of solidarity. Though they were trained never to speak or show reaction, kindness has a way of bending even the strongest rules. The boy's uncle, who had been standing behind him anxiously, rushed forward and gently placed his hands on the boy's shoulders. He tried to apologize, worried about causing trouble, but the guard gave the smallest, almost invisible nod. It was enough to say, "It's all right. You did nothing wrong." After accepting the note, the guard didn't speak, but something in the air had changed completely. People weren't just watching a ceremonial display anymore. They were witnessing humanity shining through tradition. A peaceful warmth settled over the crowd, the kind that reminds people that even the strongest uniforms are still worn by human beings with hearts beating underneath. Later, when the guards finished their shift, the one who accepted the note stepped into a quiet back room away from the public. His superior asked if everything was okay, and the guard simply held up the drawing. "This," he said softly, "reminded me why I wanted to serve." It was the first time he had spoken about his own mother, who had supported his dream but passed before she could see him at the palace. The picture wasn't just a child's drawing. It was a message passed from one heart to another, from one loss to someone who understood it deeply. It bridged two strangers with a shared sense of love, honor, and the quiet strength that comes from remembering the people who shaped us. Word of the moment spread quickly, and within days, the clip went viral. But what touched people most wasn't the rule-breaking. It was the reminder that kindness still has power. Even in places where silence is the rule, compassion can speak louder than protocol. In the end, the boy never sought attention. He never expected his gesture to be seen by millions. He simply wanted to honor his mother the same way she once honored others. And in doing so, he created a moment so heartfelt that it softened even the stillness of a royal guard. Sometimes, kindness doesn't need grand gestures. Sometimes, it's a single note, a small drawing, or a quiet moment of connection that reminds us how deeply we're all linked. And as the world watched the Royal Guard break character that day, one thing became clear. Kindness, even in its smallest form, can melt the hardest of moments and bring us all a little closer together.